The most famous son of Newcastle, George Stephenson, was not a footballer, but a mining engineer and a railway pioneer. From his lowly birth in 1781 in this whilom cottage, he was destined to become world-renowned. Life in George's youth revolved around the coal mine. At 17, he became an engine operator, lifting the coal and miners from the deep pit below. He paid for evening classes to learn literacy, numeracy, and the principles of engineering. Whilst at the Killingworth Colliery, north of Newcastle, George developed a safety lamp for miners, giving light but unable to set off explosions in the gassy atmosphere below ground. At the other end of the country, Humphrey Davy reached a similar solution. The Geordie lamp was first, but Davy went to his grave with the irrational belief that George had stolen his idea. To help haul coal at Killingworth, George built the first viable steam locomotive, Blucher, in 1814. It was underpowered and prone to failures. Not daunted by this, he went on to make further improved designs. His Killingworth Billy from 1816 is still around today. Stephenson derived some of his ideas from earlier attempts at steam traction. The quaint Penny Darren loco of Richard Trevithick showed it was possible, if a little ramshackle. Headley's Puffing Billy was used at the Wylam Colliery after Stephenson had left, but based on his ideas. By 1825, he was driving his mighty locomotion No. 1 along the Stockton to Darlington Railway, the first commercial passenger and goods line in the world. The scramble for steam power increased, and in 1830 the Liverpool to Manchester Railway was opened after George and his son Robert's Rocket reigned supreme at the Rainhill trials the previous year. George was responsible for the track, including what was thought impossible, laying rails over Chat Moss, a peat bog around Wigan and Warrington. George and Robert became wealthy as they built more railways at home and abroad. Behind Newcastle Central Station, their engineering works, today a leisure venue, was the centre of this locomotive boom. It is hard to believe that less than 20 years after the Liverpool-Manchester Railway opened, trains ran the length of the country. Here in Newcastle, spanning the Tyne was a challenge. Any crossing had to allow large ships to pass underneath. George and Robert's solution was the high-level bridge, with its tall piers supporting a combined road and rail route, opened in 1849. George died of pleurisy the year before the new bridge opened. Robert would die aged 53 in 1859, the same year as that other innovator, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Everyone remembered George as the railway master, yet a man from humble working origins. The term Industrial Revolution was on people's lips, with Northumbrian George a folk hero. Wealthy dignitaries in Newcastle thought it was time for a statue. In 1858, after much argument, John Graham Lough was engaged to cast the great man in bronze. Luff was a fellow northerner from County Durham who had wowed viewers at the Royal Academy with his classical realism. His 1843 Collingwood monument at Tynemouth is typical of his romantic style. It was put up over 30 years after the great man's death, so few would remember him and fewer still be able to hover high to check his likeness. It was an ideal form, gentlemanly, redolent of beauty rather than truth. He gazes seaward with a rightward glance to nearby North Shields. The monument to Stephenson would have to be more accurate. He is perched atop a plinth inspired by Pietro Tacca's I Quattro Mori in Livorno, Italy. It was Luff's frailed entry for Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square, London. George looks down at us as one of them rather than one of us. His gaze is towards the Institute of Mining and Mechanical Engineers and Bolbec Hall, the site of the original Neville Hall where he demonstrated his safety lamp and railway plans. It's a passing likeness of the man, larger than life, without age lines, yet wearing a strange outfit. Beneath him lounge four gentlemen representing trades, but these chaps have never done a day's work in their lives. This one is supposed to represent Robert with his latest engine design. Another is the bearded blacksmith ready to hammer thunder and lightning to make the boilers. Here we see the miner with his Geordie lamp. He's never touched a pickaxe or a pit prop. Finally we see the plate layer, with a section of rail symbolising the network of tracks spreading worldwide as a lasting legacy of this genius man of the people. In the 1960s, Newcastle's civic leaders declared industry over. To prove it, they were prepared to demolish the entire 19th century city architecture. Victoriana was out, glass and concrete was in. Stephenson and his monument would have been swept away in the headlong plunge into brutalism and mediocrity had not good sense prevailed. Ruskin saw the railways as vile emblems of capitalist greed. The Duke of Wellington thought that if commoners were allowed to travel, revolution wouldn't be far behind. Tory Macmillan and Richard Beeching saw them as an unnecessary expense used by the poor, and Margaret Thatcher saw them as an enrichment for her friends. Only in Britain do those with influence think of the railways as beneath their dignity to be inhabited by untouchables. Stephenson's legacy lies not only in his rails and engines, but also in his working-class origin, never shaking off that accent, considered uneducated and rude by the posh southern elite, that same elite who amassed millions gambling on the railway boom.